Hello, my name is Ty Crump. This is episode 2 of my vlog series of my walk and approach to faith, and really just getting to know God in a personal way. Last time I talked about my religious upbringing and kind of my childhood, teenage years. I touched on the fact that I studied multiple faiths around the age of 19 when I joined the military. Today, I want to go over kind of the in-between of where I am now in my upbringing, essentially what led me here. So yeah, I guess I'll start from the beginning. When I was 19, I joined the military, and doing that, my wife started college as well, and it caused us to be separated location-wise. And given that separation, I was married, so I didn't hang out with the coworkers and drink and all the stuff that military people typically do. So I just kind of became a hermit in my room and just studied these religions, right? And as I said in the previous video, like I wanted to know truth, and since I couldn't pinpoint something that logically was truthful, I just went with something that felt good, and eventually ended up in the agnostic, atheist type thing that kind of thought about a deity as a source and whatnot. And I stayed that way for many years. And it wasn't until 2022-ish that I really got into that and kind of bridged that idea of deity as a source with technology. And this was due to my career field and a bunch of external influences, as well as like developments in AI and things like that. And I really leaned on that as my spirituality, right? I thought that like virtual reality and like being able to download consciousness and things like that into a machine or a computer would be like the next step, right? Like almost like transhumanism type things. And I stayed that way. I stayed that way for all of 2022, and I guess leading into 2023. And 2023 is when I arrived here in my current station in Texas. Before, we were in Okinawa, Japan, and that's kind of all where where the events started taking place that led me to where I am now. And the reason for that is because being the analytical mind that I am, where I really question everything, I guess people would say I'm a doubting Thomas now, would be, I don't know, let me backtrack here. The probability that all of these events that I'm about to explain line up the way they do is very, very small. And hindsight's 2020, so looking back at them, it's kind of unbelievable. Like, not impossible, right? But just unbelievable that everything lined up the way it did. Okay? And I'll explain. In Okinawa, I went out on a limb and kind of broke my typical mold of just kind of keeping my nose clean and doing what I'm told, right? I actually requested, because I was up for re-enlistment and all that, and requested, hey, can I see if anything is available in Texas? Because we're from Texas, I wanted to be closer to family. At that time, we thought that family was everything, and being closer to them would be, heaven on earth, so to speak. We thought that was the end goal, to get back to Texas to be with our family. So I requested. it was a shot in the dark. I remember telling my wife, like, it's very unlikely. It doesn't happen, right? And she prayed and felt as if, maybe it will. She held out hope and, thought maybe it will happen. Okay? Me, I was just like, yeah, whatever. So, we wait, and within a week, I submit an email, which is forwarded up to the guy who distributes orders, right? Submit an email with 3 different places, right? And so that's like not a lot of places, right? Like 3 different places within Texas that I could potentially go, or that I want to go. And I receive an email back in like a week saying, hey, you'll have orders like Monday. I think I got it on Friday, and at the very latest, you'll get orders on Monday or something like that. So I was like, whoa, blown away, right? And I expected, because orders are typically, you get your orders now and you have a significant amount of time to check out of your unit and, get prepared. No, I received orders and I had like a month to get everything done, which is a lot of stuff, especially when you're moving from another country and all that. So I went home, told my wife, we all freaked out, and it was like a great, like, hey, we're going home type thing. But we were surprised, because typically that doesn't happen. It's not impossible, but it just doesn't happen that you receive orders. Furthermore, or receive orders that you want. Furthermore, it's very unlikely that you're going to just request to go to this type of station, where it's a reserve station, but I'm active duty, and you're just support there. Very unlikely. But, I got it. Didn't really think anything, other than, I got lucky, and went about my day checking out, so on and so forth. Fast forward to getting here, okay? I got to Texas, and we found a house. We did everything that we would normally do, and I get not set in my ways. I get established in the unit, right? And I talk to people, talk to coworkers, all this, and my wife starts pushing me to get my medical issues that I had looked into, because now we have access to normal health care, not the VA health care, not the military health care, which is typically not as good as normal privatized health care. So she pressures me to do that. I finally make appointments and all that, and get scheduled and all this. An additional reason to her just wanting me to get checked out, because she's a good wife. In the unit that I was in, there was a guy who had actually been here for 7 years. If you know anything about like rotations in the military, you don't stay in one location for 7 years. At least I think it was 7 years. It was an extended amount of time that was way outside the lines of when you would normally rotate. Okay. So he was here, and he had a similar ailment to what I had, RA, rheumatoid arthritis. I'd always had suspicion that I had it, and I get here and this guy has it, and he's really broken, right? Like this is affecting his life significantly. So it kind of concerned me and caused me to go get looked at. So I go to my primary health care manager person. They did some blood work, and it comes back with everything fine, but except for my thyroid hormone. My thyroid is a little high, but they send me to a rheumatologist anyways. even though the test came back okay, other than my thyroid being a little out of whack, they decide, like, just on a whim, we'll send you to a rheumatologist anyways. So I go to the rheumatologist. The rheumatologist checks me. He's like, okay, it seems like you do have the symptoms of RA with, like, your joints and this, that, and the other, but let's do some blood work. He does blood work. The blood work comes back, no RA and no thyroid issues. Well, he sees in my previous test that I did have a thyroid issue. To which he says, there is a weird thyroid hormone jump, so we're going to send you to an endocrinologist. There's nothing wrong with your RA. We can treat the symptoms and kind of give you something that, manages those symptoms and whatnot and send you on your way. But let's send you to an endocrinologist just to be safe. Okay? Me, unaccustomed to this, being in the military, healthcare system, like, change your socks, drink water, here's some ibuprofen for pain. Like, that's the standard, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'll go to this endocrinologist person, whatever, not a big deal. Go to the endocrinologist. That person does their own blood work, and everything's fine. She comes in the room. She's like, okay, I'm looking at your blood work here. There's no reason. I don't know why you're here. There's nothing wrong. You're perfectly healthy, whatever. I'm like, okay, and I'm getting ready to get out. And she's like, but, just to be safe, let me feel your thyroid, see if there's anything going on. So on a whim, she feels my neck and realizes there's a lump. I have a lump in my neck, and she's like, okay, I need you to go to downstairs and get an ultrasound, like, today, if possible. I'm not liking what I'm feeling on your thyroid here. To which I say, okay. And I go down and I get an ultrasound or whatever, and a few days later, find out that I have a growth on my thyroid. This growth is inevitably cancer, which end result is this scar here and whatnot. But I'll get to that. So all of these on a whim things, and some people would say, oh, well, they're just doing the best they can to take care of you to make sure all certainty is good, and I'm sure, yeah, that's right. But ultimately, I get the ultrasound, it comes back, and I have a mass, right? Well, it turns out that I have multiple masses. I have a larger one and two other ones. And the endocrinologist is like, well, okay, now I need you to go get a biopsy. I need them to go do this procedure to take a piece out to see if it's cancerous, okay? Well, I go do the procedure, and in I won't say it's an operating room, but they did stab a needle in my neck multiple times to get little pieces of it. In that room, right, the notes are not clear on which mass to take the biopsy from. And granted, there is one that's larger or whatever, but they didn't know. Like, it was I don't know which one to take the biopsy. Like, I don't know which one of these lumps to take from, right? So, on a whim, they take from one of them. I'm not sure which one it was. It may have been the largest one. Who knows? Like, logically, whatever. Either way, they didn't know which one to take from. They just take from one, okay? The one they take from comes back, and it is positive for cancer. They could have all been positive for cancer. Only that one could have been positive for cancer. Either way, they went on a whim, and they took from that one, okay? It comes back positive. One thing leads to another, and I am scheduled to have a thyroidectomy, where they remove my entire thyroid, because basically these masses are kind of everywhere, and it's just safer to take out the whole thyroid rather than have to get checked and, maybe not have an issue later with additional cancers popping up. So I get it removed. Procedure goes swimmingly. My voice isn't even really messed up from the removal. It's great, right? During all this time, okay, and let me start with this. All of these events line up, and if any one of these events would have not happened, I would have not been taken care of, and I would have died. Like, that's my firm belief. I would have died because there was no reason for Naval to test my thyroid hormone. The only reason my thyroid hormone came up was because the PCM that I had just did an all-encompassing test to test all my levels, which doesn't happen in naval medical practice. You have a symptom, they treat the symptom until curing the ailment is the best method of treating the symptom, right? So I never would have had my thyroid hormone checked until things were much, much worse, okay? So if I never would have gotten orders, okay, this would have never happened. If I wouldn't have gotten the place that I wanted, which was one of the best places to be for cancer in Texas, right? This probably wouldn't have happened, probably. If my PCM wouldn't have done an all-encompassing test, all your levels test, my thyroid hormone would have never been up. And my thyroid hormone was only up the one test that happened. I never would have been sent to a rheumatologist, right? Well, I may have been sent to a rheumatologist, but if it wasn't for the whims of the PCM just sending me, I never would have went to a rheumatologist. If the rheumatologist wouldn't have done his due diligence and looked into my past results and saw that my thyroid was high, and then on a whim sent me to an endocrinologist, this never would have happened. If the endocrinologist wouldn't have looked at my thyroid just on a whim and felt it, this never would have happened. Okay? Sending me to get the ultrasound and then coming back and then sending me to get the biopsy, if they wouldn't have picked the right one at the time to retrieve that was cancerous, right? They could have picked one that was not cancerous, right? That wouldn't have happened. Okay? All of these things lined up, and it would, like, if the guy wouldn't have been here in this unit that already had RA, that had been here for much longer, this would have never happened, because I wouldn't have been kind of spooked about my RA, and I probably would have never gotten it checked. If he would have left, because he's gone now, he's no longer in this unit. He could have left before, he should have left far before, but he wasn't. All these things line up, and the probability of all these is incredibly small to line up exactly as they did for me to be here in this spot at this moment and all of this to happen. Okay? All of those logical, just medical events aside, okay, upon arriving here, all right, I was still in my technology consciousness mentality, okay? I wasn't pursuing God. I wasn't pursuing any sort of religion, nothing, all right? And maybe location. I know algorithms are based on location. I know that things looked at, so on and so forth, are just based on location. Maybe there's a higher concentration in this location of Christian-based faiths. Whatever it may be, my social media algorithms began showing me Christian, not ads, but like Christian memes, right? Like people in different groups and things showing me, like, or popping up on my feed that I didn't even care about. I was in no way interested in Christianity, no way looking for it or anything, but they did pop up. Somehow I read one without realizing it was, a Christian meme or whatever, and I liked it, right? Or thought it was funny, so I reacted to it and all that. Well, that just opened the floodgates to the algorithm, right? Well, all of that aside, watching videos and things like that, videos started popping up on that algorithm as well. So I was like, okay, and I watched a video, and I would do this on occasion. This wasn't a new thing. I would watch a video to rebuttal the religious claims of the person, right? So it wasn't okay, I want to watch this so that I can, fuel my already established beliefs. It was like the contrary. It was more of, I'm going to watch this video so I can work on my, I guess, debate skills of debunking what the Christian person in the video is claiming, right? It was a mental exercise for me. And so I watched that or whatever. Oddly enough, I guess not oddly enough, watching those videos would cause more videos to pop up, right? But specifically a video of an interview with an exorcist popped up. Me not believing any of it, thinking it's all just a bunch of people making up things and having overactive imaginations and all that. I watched it just to see what the guy would say, so I could laugh at it, and I kind of went in and out on the interview, listening more intently, less intently, so on and so forth. But at the end of the video, and this is the important part, at the end of the video, the interviewer asked the person, because the interviewer was religious, he asked the priest, the exorcist, if a person wanted to have a relationship with God or know God or anything like that, what would they have to do? And the priest, unsurprisingly, well, all they have to do is ask. They just have to genuinely ask. Me, being brought up in, a Southern Baptist tradition and all that, like, I'd already asked God, right? Like, did the whole thing, went to the altar, received Jesus, been baptized, all that, right? Like, whatever. But I realized that I was lost at that time, or I realized that I was not there. But I concluded, or rather affirmed the fact within myself, that the idea that I had of divinity or deity was not sufficient. So, in spite of the video, literally because the priest said that, I was at a red light, and I'm like, all right, God, if you are real, okay, if you are up there, give me a sign, right? And I just said that out loud to whatever deity was there, right? Not believing, just genuinely, okay, I really want to know the truth. If you are there, show me, God. Questioning, basically doubting, like, this isn't going to happen, whatever. And I asked for a sign, not even knowing what the sign would consist of. Like, not even knowing what would be proof for me. Like, I wouldn't know if, like, a shining light would appear to me in the sky, or, someone would say something, or, like, see people in the Bible and stuff see things all the time. Other people claim they see things all the time. Like, I didn't even know what a sign would be. I didn't even know what credible proof was for the existence of God, or that God was there listening. No idea. So I went, and after I did that, I felt a yearning, a desire to go to church. Genuinely, just like, man, like, why do I keep thinking about going to church? Why do I have this I need to read the Bible feeling? Like, this is foreign to me. I don't like this. What is this, right? And I sit and I ruminate on it for no joke, 3 days. After 3 days, I am laying in my bed, and this feeling has come to a peak. It's come to a head, and I have to just express it, right? And I'm laying in my bed with my wife, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, babe, this is gonna sound so weird, but I feel like we should go to church. Her response is shock and awe, like, what? Like, she's surprised, but she confirms it and says, quote, I knew it. God works in mysterious ways. End quote. And I'm confused. I don't understand. To which she explains, 3 days prior to me explaining this to her, she had talked to her mother, unknown to me, talked to her mother and explained that she had a feeling that they should go to church, or that we should go to church, and that she feels like she's fallen away. Okay? So individually, we each had religious experiences which, after 3 days, were divulged to each other. We expressed our religious or spiritual events to each other. They were individually developed. We weren't communicating about this. I would not talk to her about it because it was awkward, and that just wasn't me. So individually, we developed religious experiences and then came together, ironically, 3 days after the fact and told each other this. Well, that kind of lit a fire under the both of us, because how would this happen, right? Like how would we have individual experiences that end up being the same? Like, the probability of that is extremely low. Like, that our minds would be, on the same topic when we have completely different interests, completely different likes and stuff with our algorithms and stuff. Like, it just wouldn't happen, right? It's not like she watched a video. She just got the urge. She just got the feeling. At least my algorithm could be justified by the location or whatever, right? You can dismiss it that way. But she didn't have anything. And then 3 days comes by, and we essentially express we express our spiritual events to each other. And we realize that maybe this God guy is, or I realize maybe this is a sign, right? Like, I don't realize I know at that point, right? Like, okay, that's really weird, right? And I just kind of get this fire in me. She gets this fire in her to, like, follow God, the Christian God, right? Because it's just there, and these coincidences for me, and now this happen all at once, and we're kind of overwhelmed. Well, I kind of get chills, and I'm like, we kind of dismiss it, and I think about it. She thinks about it, so on and so forth. But then that's when I pursue God, and eventually I don't know how to explain it, but I end up having a personal experience with God. It's when someone says God talks to you, a lot of times I feel as if it's just their conscience, right? It's their conscience saying, oh, that's a bad thing, you shouldn't do that, and whatnot. In this experience that I had, separate from my conscience, separate from my own internal voice, I know for a fact that God spoke to me. It was not an audible thing, and it still feels odd and foreign saying this because it just seems so strange. Especially to me, who has been away for so long, and I analyze everything and all that, and I understand that I sound somewhat, for lack of a better term, somewhat kooky, somewhat, crazy. But I know for a fact that this experience I had was directly God talking to me. And what he had essentially said, not essentially, what he told me was that I need to speak and try to reestablish a communication with my dad. Okay. To which I tried. Long story short, it was to no avail. It didn't work out in this beautiful scene, right? Like this beautiful, oh, God told me to talk to my dad and it worked out and now everything's great again. No, God told me to talk to my dad, and I 100% believe that it was God telling me to speak with my dad. The thing I learned from that engagement with my dad is kind of who people are and how everything is not as it seems. Okay, with relationships that you have with people and all that. And I won't get into the nitty gritty of that. But ultimately, the big takeaway for this episode is those are the coincidences with incredibly low probability that lined up perfectly to allow me to ask genuinely for God to give me a sign. And then, with no exaggeration, 3 days later, I expressed this to my wife, who simultaneously on the same day that I asked for my sign, had a feeling, right, that we both need to, that she needs to get back into following the Lord. 3 days later, we expressed this, okay? And it happens to where, okay, like this is real. That was my sign, right? Because my wife is my everything at this point. That was my sign. Then I began kind of pursuing God, and we kind of go to church, we kind of do this, and I feel like I need to speak with my dad. And I literally know for a fact that God spoke to me through the Holy Spirit or whatever we want to call it. God spoke to me. On that note, I began pursuing him even more. And there are several people that, come into my life through my work and everywhere else that lead me to the faith that I am now, following God. But that is for another video. So that's episode 2. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you would like to continue hearing my story and whatnot, please subscribe or whatever. Check back later. You don't have to subscribe or anything. If you think that someone would benefit from this video or this series, please share it. This is a vlog series for me to look back at 10 years from now, to see where I was and how far I've grown, as well as to help anyone who can relate to my path that I've taken from falling away to coming back. I just want to affect change, and I want to draw people to the Lord.